Hello, today we will be explaining our PBL project for the environmental science subject. We will talk about the sustainable packaging and how to find a better type of packaging which will be more sustainable, more eco-friendly, and will decrease the damage to the environment. And we will talk about all of these during the coming slides. The index. Our research consists of many different parts. We started with the objectives, the introduction, then we talked about our hypothesis, then we took our time in the research. Lastly, we found in the internet and many websites the data that was required for this research to be more accurate. Our idea was to use mushroom and seaweed to make a new type of packaging which will be more sustainable, more eco-friendly, and will have less damage to the environment. And lastly, we tried to make our model, which we will talk about it in the coming slides. And we talked about our conclusion, which concludes all our ideas in this research. Objectives. We had different multiple objectives that we tried our best efforts to achieve it by the end of this presentation. Let's start with the first one, to recognize our hypothesis for the PBL project. Secondly, to state our hypothesis. Thirdly, to identify our creative solutions. Last but not least, to demonstrate the background information for the PBL project with some data. We will try our best efforts to achieve these objectives by the end of this presentation. Introduction. We were tasked with finding a way to reduce waste. Our main objective in this research was to find a new, more sustainable type of packaging, which will decrease the amount of damage to the environment. This will include eco-friendly materials that contain natural resources, and these natural resources will have less damage to the environment. Before talking about our ideas, all of the members in the group combined their ideas together, and we try to find the best suitable packaging that will be more eco-friendly and will have less damage to the environment. We conducted a research to find eco-friendly materials which will reduce our total waste. Each member in our group used his research abilities and skills to search in the internet for many hours and to find the best suitable ideas. For example, my colleague Saif found a new idea which was too creative and it was very useful, which is the mushroom and the seaweed. These two ideas can be used in the real world and will have very beneficial results, in my opinion. Our hypothesis. Before starting our research, we try to find and talk about our own hypothesis, what we think, what will be the result. So our hypothesis will be approved or disapproved by the end of this research. We will find a replacement for plastic. So before starting the research, we noticed that we have to find a substitute or an alternate for using plastic in packaging. We have to find a new material that can be more eco-friendly, it can be more sustainable, it can last for a longer period of time but have less damage to the environment. So we try to find all these points in our research. Our research also led to a decrease in solid waste. We have to find a packaging that will decrease the amount of solid waste, which will be which we will put it in the landfills lastly. Because of that, we have to decrease our waste and improve our landfills and put or leave more space in the country or the nation. We know that we can replace plastic with a more eco-friendly material. We don't know which one yet. So before making our research for a long period of time in the internet, we were sure that we will find an eco-friendly material which will be sustainable and eco-friendly, but we were not sure about which one exactly. So my colleague Saif found lastly that it will be seaweed and mushroom. So this was our hypothesis. Research. Before finding a solution for something in any situation in our life, we have to know the problem in order to find the most proper solution for it. So before starting our research, we had two main questions, which I will introduce it right now. The first question was, what is the most efficient and structured design that will come the least amount of damage to the environment? So this was a very important question that we had to put in our minds. It must be the packaging must be more efficient and it has less damage to the environment. So this 2 points was our one of our goals from the beginning of the research. The second question, what natural resources we can use to produce packaging that will decrease the solid waste problem in the environment. This was another important question that we put in our mind from the beginning of the research. That will be what natural resources we can use. Natural resources are one of the most important things in our life, and we have to use them in the most beneficial way. So these was the most two important questions for our before starting our research.
Moving on, this is some data we have presented in our presentation. We can see from the two graphs that plastic is really affecting our country. 75.8% of plastic is being kept in landfills and not recycled or combusted. We can also see the amount of plastic that has increased in tons throughout the years from 1990 to 2018. This is almost a 4% increase in the amount of plastic we use, which became 35 million tons of plastic that are thrown in landfills and so on, even in the oceans, which affect the sea aquatic animals. So what are our two ideas? We thought about ways that we could change plastic into a more sustainable packaging material. So we found seaweed and mushroom. So, seaweed. The first material we found was seaweed. It is easy to farm and extract, as it does not require many fertilizers or anything else. Seaweed is a natural material which can be decomposed easier than plastic. Plastic takes a long time to decompose and combust, but seaweed is much faster and more natural. We can see two pictures of how seaweed can be used instead of plastic in the seaweed container that we are using on the right. It can hold clothes and even packaging products instead of using plastic. Mushroom. Another sustainable material that we can use for packaging are mushrooms. Mushrooms can be fed without agriculture waste at the right conditions and can form into mycelium. Mycelium can then be used to create and mold designs of boxes and containers like you can see on the right. Mushrooms, this will help small farmers as well because as they have a lot of agriculture waste, they could sell them to some factories and it could help them as well as the country in reducing plastic waste. So we were asked to design a 3D sketch. On the bottom, in the bottom corner, we can see the mycelium container. This will be a lunchbox style mycelium container that can be used by children or even by restaurants. On the top left, we see a tray that can be used for food, and this is a sketch that we created for our mycelium packaging. It can be used as a food tray as it will have a small seaweed film inside the plate that will prevent it from affecting the food. The mycelium will not be in direct contact with the food, but the seaweed will, and the seaweed does not have any odor or taste that could affect the food in any way. And on the top right, you can see our seaweed film sachet, which can be hard or soft depending on how you want it to be to protect your materials. Conclusion. We reached our hypothesis by suggesting a method of design for new materials that are sustainable and will reduce our plastic use and waste percentages. To conclude, we have found two materials that are seaweed and mycelium, which can be utilized for packaging whether for food or for products or even for packaging itself. By enforcing our suggestions, we could decrease the plastic usage per year and decrease our total waste, because plastic and cardboard also hold large spots in landfill. And by using these materials, we could replace cardboard for mycelium containers as it will be less expensive and even more beneficial for our environment and country and the world at large. Thank you for listening.